This is part two of chapter one's screencast on social problems. We're on slide 20, norm violations. Sociologists examine the discrepancy between the defined social standard and reality, what really goes on. Those who go too far outside the social network are labeled deviants. Location in the social structure and in space may lead to deviant behavior. By space, we're talking region, size of the community, neighborhood, and so forth. Norm violators, the deviants, should not be entirely blamed for their deviance. They are victims, or they're victims of consequence of a society that they reside in, and there is some blame to be placed in the system. That's not to say, as many people level the charge at sociology, that individuals are completely blameless, but the emphasis is far too to the other side of the pendulum in terms of blaming individuals exclusively. So situations affecting deviance, such as the barriers to success faced by various groups with lack of access to resources, help explain why some categories of people participate disproportionately in deviant behavior. Social problems are culturally defined and socially labeled. Sociologists are interested in the social and cultural processes that label some acts and persons as deviant and others as normal. The focus is on who benefits and who suffers because of the organization of society. Institutionalized deviance is going to be the focus of this class. These are social arrangements organized in ways that are unresponsive to many human needs. Examples: when health care is unequally distributed, when tax laws permit a business to write off 50% of a $100 luncheon but prohibit a truck driver from writing off a bologna sandwich, for example, or when government is run by a few for the benefits of the few. So a social problem is a societally induced condition that causes psychic and material suffering for any segment of the population and acts and conditions that violate norms and values of society. The distribution of power in society is the key to understanding these social problems. C. Wright Mills was a famous American sociologist who lived in the mid-20th century. His central insight was the point of sociology is to realize that individual circumstances are linked to social structure. Focus on the social, economic, and historical circumstances that cause individual problems, and question the structural arrangements of society. My experience when I was 19 is probably going to be very different than your experience as a 19-year-old or the one that you had when you were 19, because of where I lived and when I lived, and my social status, the characteristics I bring to this process. How do we get at this sociological imagination? You view the world from the perspective of others, you focus on the social, economic, and historical circumstances that cause individual problems, and you question the structural arrangement of society. The sociological imagination permits seeing of solutions to social problems not in terms of changing problem people or deviants, but in terms of changing the structure of the entire society. So the basic unit of analysis in social problems, and our study of social problems, is social structure. Well, what does that mean? Let's talk about what a unit of analysis is for a moment. Okay, a unit of analysis could be an individual, certainly, but it can also be, for example, if I was looking at the divorce rate, you could look at marriages. That's a unit of analysis. It's two individuals, right? And so when we talk about social structure as a basic unit of analysis, the thing we're going to analyze, What we're going to be looking at is a social structure. It's a routine, system-wide pattern of organizing human beings to meet certain social um, needs, group needs. For example, the social structure. We have a need for policing, right? The question is, though, do social problems stem from the individual or the social system? In the person blame approach, we assume that social problems result from pathologies of individuals. A very strong tendency for individuals, lay people, police officers, judges, lawmakers, and even social scientists to perceive social problems and prescribe remedies from an individualistic perspective. If for example, you take welfare recipients and you have a class to teach them, how to motivate themselves, but there are no jobs available for them to get, we're talking about a person blame approach. A system blame approach assumes that social problems result from social conditions. The person blame approach, for example, looks for explanations of failure and recidivism in the individual. That's crime, violating a criminal again, as a problem. It seems cultural deprivation. The culture is not exposed to the educational opportunities of the middle class, and implication that culture is inferior or deficient. It defines a social problem as a behavior that deviates from norms and standards of a society. It questions the exceptions because people do not ordinarily examine critically the way things are done in society. The consequences of the person blame approach is that it fails to address societal causes and the social problems remain in place. It frees many involved in institutional social problem generating apparatuses from blame. The government, the economy, the justice system, stratification, the educational system. And it justifies a form of social Darwinism. The strong tendency to blame social problems on individuals rather than on the social system lies in how people tend to look at social problems. The system blame approach, reasons for focusing on system blame approach. Balance is needed between person blame and system blame approaches. Why did children fail at school? Irrelevant curriculum, class bias, IQ test, tracking systems. Why do criminals recidivate? Penal system, scarcity of employment for ex-cons. The schools, 20% to 30% of inmates are functionally illiterate. So, what we do is we look at two sociological questions. Okay, we look to the craft of sociology. We're going to look at the analysis of social problems depends on reliable data and logical reasoning. How would sociologists examine this figure? Female to male ratio. Some questions sociologists may ask: what accounts for the plateau of men's earnings from 1972 and a gradual increase in the earnings of women during those years? Okay, so basically, when we ask these questions, okay, we want to examine. We want to uncover and understand facts. We ask comparative questions. We compare contexts. We look at historical trends. We go beyond the factual to ask why. A theory is a set of ideas, a sociological theory that explains a range of human behavior and a variety of social and societal interests. Helps to guide research. In part 3 of our screencast, we will talk about social research methods.